Hello and welcome to the Waves of Joy podcast. I'm your host, Brenda Winkle. I'm a mindset and empowerment coach and an advanced theta healing practitioner. This podcast is about finding joy. It will also be about inspiring women who have found and built joy-filled lives. You'll hear more about how to find joy hourly, daily, monthly, and yearly, and learn about how to spread joy. You'll also hear powerful stories that don't sound joyful at the beginning, but where joy was found. I started this podcast because I wanted to normalize finding joy while experiencing the ups and downs of daily life. I hope you feel inspired and entertained. Now, pop in your earbuds or take me with you on your commute, or maybe both. Let's do this. Find waves of joy. Every time I plan a trip, the planning and anticipation is just as much fun as the actual trip. I'm planning something really fun, really special for you. I'm going to begin hosting retreats, and I'm going to begin really soon. I'm in the information gathering phase right now and have a Google form for you with information as well as some questions so you can help me decide where we should have our first retreat. Simply email me, brenda@brendawinkle.com, and I'll send you over the form. Would you like to feel better and release limiting beliefs? Of course you would. I created a free meditation for you that's downloadable. As soon as you click submit, I'll email you with a downloadable version of this free meditation. Go to brendawinkle.com/feel better. That's brendawinkle.com/FEELBETTER. Your mind and your body will thank you. Well, hello there. Thank you for listening to the Waves of Joy podcast. Can you believe that since we started our journey together on April 12th, 2022, we have almost 700 downloads? It's more than I could have dreamed. If you've already given the podcast a rating on Apple, Spotify, or Google, or wherever you're listening to this podcast, sincere thanks. The more ratings and reviews each podcast has, the more likely it is that it will show up in the feed of someone who really needs it. So thank you so much for being willing to rate and review the podcast. And if you feel called, please consider sharing this episode. In this episode, my guest, Marianna Johnson, and I are talking about all kinds of things. Marianna is a branding photographer in Michigan. And not only are we talking about branding and photography, but we're talking about how important it is for women to get in front of the camera, what that feels like, how to work through some of the discomfort that comes from that. And we also talk about some unexpected things that came up, like postpartum depression. As you get ready to listen to this episode, it is June 19th, 2022. And starting this weekend, I've decided that I need to show up in a bigger way for all of you. So I'm offering free 15-minute coaching sessions. That's right, free 15-minute coaching sessions. There's a limit of one per person, and it's first come, first serve. Each week, I'll set aside some time in my calendar. Just like your coach on the soccer field, I'll help you find ways to be even better at what you do. To book your session, go to my website, brendawinkle.com/free-coaching-session. Book yours today. They're first come, first serve. And if all the calendar links are full, check back in a few more days, or you can email me, brenda@brendawinkle.com. If I have time in my schedule, I'll open up more slots. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Waves of Joy podcast. I'm your host, Brenda Winkle, and I'm so excited today because I have a special guest. I have Marianna Johnson with me today on the podcast. She is a wife and a mama to two adorable little girls, Emmeline and Noelle. She's a branding photographer from the mid-Michigan area, and she believes that women business owners deserve a photographer that will empower them to show up for themselves and their audience. I am so excited to have you here, Marianna. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much, Brenda. I'm so excited to be here.
So Marianna and I met in a program run by Kathy Heller, and it's a program that is really designed to help us step out of our comfort zones in a supportive way and really chase after feeling good. What was your experience like?
I know. How empowering. Such a beautiful, beautiful experience, Brenda. I can't even put words on it. I mean, just stepping into yourself and into that space of, that there are such big plans for all of us, and we just really need to step into that. And it doesn't matter what other people think of us. It doesn't matter what other people say. It's about what we want. And it's just so beautiful. And like the finding the joy in the everyday and coming back to your center, that it was such a beautiful program. I love it. I'm still going back and rewatching videos, and it was so, so important and part of my journey.
Yes, I feel the same way. I'm glad that we have that video archive because I'll be diving in when this program ends. I'll be watching take 2.
Absolutely.
So as a branding photographer, you have an opportunity to not only develop your own brand, but to interact with other people's brands. Can you tell us what that's like?
Yes. So very fun, very empowering. I love to help women kind of get a large scope idea of what it can look like, because a lot of people think brand photography and they think just business headshots. And it's so much more than that. I mean, I go through women business owners. I go through their social media, their websites. I comb through everything. I look for kind of inconsistencies where they need to maybe level up a little bit and show up. Because I think that's where most women especially have a problem with, is showing up and themselves showing up and stepping in front of the camera and saying, here I am, this is me, I am the face of my business, this is what I do behind the scenes. Because many of them, a lot of times they'll just want to, show the products, but they won't want to show the work that goes into it behind it. And there's so much that goes into a brand that you can show your audience. And it's so empowering for them to see, oh, so this is kind of how it is. It doesn't have to be just like a pretty photo of me for a Meet Me Monday post. There's so much content that I can talk about through social media and even on my website, blog posts, Instagram, Facebook. I mean, it's endless what they can do. And it's just so nice to step into that role and really show them what's possible when, one, they either haven't believed in themselves enough to do it, or two, they don't think that their content is powerful enough to be shared. And it's just so, so important. Just 100%. I love to go in and say, this is what we can do and this is what it can look like. And a lot of women, they don't even realize, and they get really excited once they kind of get in the process. So it's a lot of fun.
Do you think that they find it empowering too?
I do. After we start, I think a lot of women are a little nervous to begin, because many of them haven't been in the spotlight. They've been spotlighting their business, but they're not really making the connection between I am my business. Like, it's not separate. You know what I mean? You are the face of your business. To get your audience to love you, they have to trust you. They have to know you. You have to show up. You can't just sit behind the scenes and keep sharing all your products. You really have to get in there and say, hi, I'm me. I'm making the products. And this is all the love that I've poured into them. This is the backstory that goes into this. And people connect with stories. It's so important. They connect with you. If you can share a story and you trigger someone, they're going to buy from you because they love your story. They like you.
Absolutely. I think there's so much truth in that. We're yearning for connection and to feel seen. And then if we remember that, it's just more powerful as business owners that we all want to be seen. How do you convince somebody who is scared to show up for themselves to show up for themselves?
Really good question. So I usually use a lot of past work. I have had some clients that they were really nervous. They weren't really sure. And a lot of it is that they're just not sure, and they need to be educated on what exactly it looks like. And it might be really little things like, I'm not sure what to wear because I'm not really comfortable in front of the camera. But once you kind of guide them through that process and show them like, oh, Sally down the road, this is what we did for her brand. And she was really nervous about this part, but we started with maybe products instead of just throwing her in front of the camera. And once they kind of get into the vibe of doing what they do behind the scenes, they kind of forget. And it's kind of just process of, oh, hey, I do this every day, but somebody's just taking pictures of me doing it. Mm-hmm. So I try to make people relax. It doesn't have to be boring. Like, we can play music, we can have a good time, we can have a cup of coffee. It doesn't have to be stiff. It's not like I go in and I'm like, okay, you have to do it this way. No, this is all you. It has to be authentic or it's not going to work.
Right. Did you ever have a hard time showing up for your own business?
Absolutely. Yeah. In the beginning, especially, I think we all have that imposter syndrome creep in now and then of, who am I to be doing this? And am I really the one that should be doing this at all? And, absolutely. And it was very ironic, right? Because I'm a photographer and I empower women to do it every day. And when I first made kind of the shift from wedding photography to more branding photography, I was nervous and I'm like, I have to empower women to show up and I'm not even showing up yet, but it's a process. I've been showing up more this last year and making myself get out and do it. And once you do it once, it's just kind of like, you just do it, you have to stop caring what people think. And it's not about other people. It's about you and it's about your audience.
Absolutely. So. I love that. And so one of the things that I have noticed about myself and my own journey is that the more I show up, the more I'm willing to show up, but that I had to be willing to show up messy and make mistakes and not be able to talk in front of my own camera, especially like on a live with 0 people there. That can make you feel really self-conscious. And it took practice. And it's still something I sort of have to get pumped up to do. But, I rely on my friend Lizzo to pump me up. And someday I hope to meet her in person. But what are some ways that you initially were able to get out of the imposter syndrome?
So for one thing, I drastically cut back on people I was following on social media. I was following a lot of other photographers. And while it is a beautiful thing to look at others' work, it also can have a lot of comparisonitis step in. And that sometimes it's very nerve-wracking when you're like, oh, maybe I should be doing it this way. And she's showing up live that way. And maybe I should be doing reels more consistently. But the bottom line is that what works for one person may not always work for your business. And it's really important to stay truthful to yourself, because say if I'm going to go and show up in a reel, I mean, not me personally, but just anyone, but it was something that I really didn't want to do. And I had been doing it a few times and it just felt gross to me. I mean, I would probably just say, stop. Maybe that's not your outlet. Maybe you only should show up live if you're comfortable with that. Some people have a really hard time getting over the tech side of things too, because it's intimidating. In like reels, you have people that are, doing transitions and dropping food, and then it like turns into something else. And I mean, I think a lot of people are just intimidated by that. And you kind of just have to go at your own pace. You're where you are for a reason. And it's just all part of your journey. You don't have to speed up. You don't have to, hurry to be the best. There's always going to be people better than you. And there's always going to be people behind you that are looking up to you. It's not, you don't have to control every single thing. You just have to take your time, because otherwise you're going to get burnt out.
Right. Exactly. So a lot of my listeners are people who have historically put themselves on the back burner and they're ready to change that, or they're in the process of changing that, or they're thinking about getting ready to change that. Has that ever been a part of your story?
Yeah. So let's see. I don't want to go back too much. So my first daughter was born in 2014, and I hadn't finished my teaching degree at that time because I had taken some time off. So I had taken some time off and I had met my husband and we got married and I got pregnant and I had my first daughter, and she was a lot. She was very colicky. She cried a lot, up all night. I was postpartum, so I was having a hard time as well. But it was more postpartum anxiety. So I wanted to be with her all the time. I didn't want to leave her. I wanted to keep her very close, and I'm sure she probably fed off of that energy. So it kind of was a vicious cycle. And so I pretty much did everything for her, like the first probably 3 years. When she was 2.5, I decided that I really wanted to finish my teaching degree. I wanted to do it. It needed done. I don't like to leave things unfinished. That's just part of my personality. So I went back and I finished, and I did my student teaching, and I was like, this is not for me. I don't think I want to do this. I finished and everything, it was fine, but I got offered like a part-time sub position that was going to probably turn into a full-time, and I turned it down because I wanted to be home with my daughter after being gone so much. And then I got pregnant with my second daughter shortly after that. So there's 4 years in between them. And then she was born, and she was so quiet. She never made a peep, didn't cry. And she was very good, but I just felt like I wanted to take the time and just be a stay-at-home mom for a while until I really figured out what I wanted to do. I felt like there was more to me than just a stay-at-home mom, but I didn't know what to do. And I had wasted so much money in college switching majors and trying to figure it out, because I think I ultimately knew deep down that teaching wasn't what I needed either. But I was trying to satisfy that like calling of I need more. And I did. I put myself on the back burner and I just focused on my family, and, I just focused on them. I mean, it was preschool and it was taking care of them all day and making sure the house was perfect and pouring my energy into, staying at home. And for the first, I started photography. It was like, I don't know, probably 6 months after my daughter was born, my second daughter. And I didn't go full out into it because I was still in that stage, where I'm like, I have to be around for them. I have to be around for them. I can't stray. And I mean, even in my first year of really doing weddings full time, I would like go do weddings, but then I would do nothing else. I mean, I would do nothing else. Like I would do a wedding on the weekend, and then all I would do is stay home. When she napped, I would edit photos. And then when she was awake, I mean, it was like, 3 meals a day. I wouldn't ask for help. I mean, and I think that is such an important thing, is I just pushed myself aside and I just said, I'm just going to do what everybody else needs me to do, because I can't handle putting myself first if there's other emotions going on. Like I can't put my own emotions first because I have to deal with everybody else's. And that was really tough. I mean, and it was hard to get over. And I'm just now this year really stepping into that, because my youngest is 4 now. And I kind of finally feel like we're in the stage of, okay, I can go do the things I need to do for a little bit and put my business more at the forefront. But yeah, for a long time, it really felt like all of my stuff was in the back and everybody else's was in the front. And it's hard to kind of fight through that when you have so much passion going on, but it's a juggle. It really is when you have a family.
Mm-hmm, for sure. So you said, you were talking about well, first of all, I want to circle back to something. I'm in education too. And it's so interesting to me.
Oh.
I keep finding people and attracting people that have some toe in education in some way. So it's really interesting that, that you have a teaching degree. I've been a teacher for many, many years, in addition to running my business and my podcast. But I wanted to circle back to two things. One is acknowledging the anxiety that you experienced as being a new mom. And I think that sometimes we have this idea that it's all supposed to be perfect. And I got really stuck in that as a brand new mom, and it was imperfect from the word go. Like it was an imperfect experience. It was not great. It was, time in the NICU after 8 hours of being out of the NICU. Then it was the next week in the NICU and all of that. And so I had this bubble that burst around what this was supposed to look like, in addition to some medical complications that were really hard. And then dealing with postpartum depression. And I didn't know at the time that that's what it was, because we didn't talk about it like we talk about it now. My daughter's 20. And so
I still don't think it's talked about enough. I had no idea. I mean, I really didn't. I will tell you that we had an absolute beautiful childhood growing up. My mom was the greatest mom. She was a stay-at-home mom. Did everything so well. When I was little, I was like, I just want to be like my mom. I'm going to be the best stay-at-home mom. Seriously. I mean, strived to be that mom. And when I had my first daughter, I mean, it was literally from the time she was born in the hospital, like I thought something was wrong with me and I couldn't figure it out, Brenda. I mean, I would sit and come home and I would sob because, it wasn't postpartum like you hear some women have where they're unattached from their baby. It wasn't that kind of postpartum. It was more like the postpartum anxiety. I couldn't sleep. I would just lay in my bed and cry. I mean, my husband would try to care for her. And it was like, I was on high alert all the time. Like if she made one peep, I was out of bed. I had to do it all myself. And that's a little bit, I mean, I'm a little type A, I guess, but not usually that much. I mean, normally if I need help, I'm like, okay, I need a little bit of help today. But yeah, it was bad. And that whole vision was just shattered of having the perfect newborn and going places with her. I didn't want to leave my house, Brenda. I mean, she cried that much. We took her to a specialist because she had a herniated belly button. And to this day, I'm convinced it was from her screaming constantly. Mm. I mean, and she's just the cutest thing. And now you'd never know it. She's just, she's 8 now and she's just the happiest go lucky kid ever. And she's so funny. They just actually did a play, The Wizard of Oz, and she was a munchkin along with some of the other kids. But she's just a sweetheart. But man, the image that is presented about the perfect coming home, I mean, there needs to be more talk about it because it's not always that way. And it's for a lot of women, I think a lot of women are scared to say something because they're like, what is wrong with me? Everybody else is having this great experience and all these perfect baby photos. And here I am drowning in spit up and my kid is screaming constantly.
Right. So, and there's poop on my shoe. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Or on the carpet Oh my goodness. I hear that.
Yeah. And so I feel like a lot of the women that I talk to and that I work with have this perfectionism, even if we don't call it that, we call it a lot of different things. But it's these expectations that we have around what we should be, how we should show up, what our family should look like, what our careers should look like. And I'd love to circle back to something you said. You said you were looking for your calling of I need more. And teasing out the idea of being the perfect mom, the perfect wife, and finding space for your own calling is something that's hard to do. It's something that was hard for me until, fairly recently. I had to really work my way through that. How did you find your way to tease out the difference between caring for your kids in the way that you thought they should and honoring your own need for more?
So I won't lie, it was very difficult in the beginning because, like I said, I had been just a stay-at-home mom. And I don't want to say just a stay-at-home mom. I don't want people to think that it's just a stay-at-home mom, because that is one of the hardest jobs that there is, the hardest and most rewarding jobs that there is. I love my girls with all my heart. And I mean, I'm still a stay-at-home mom, but I'm also a work-at-home mom now. And it was difficult. I mean, every time I would sit down, and I still have days. I mean, I still have days even now where if I'm on the computer too much or I'm working too much, I feel guilty. And I feel like I should be over there playing with my kids. I should be over there doing that. And if that starts to set in, I will just put my stuff down and I will go do something with them, because it's the guilt. I mean, they're not going to be young forever. And I know that. But in the beginning, it was a lot of conversations with my husband. He worked a lot. He actually used to work for one of the soda companies, and he would work a ton. I mean, and he worked an hour away and on second shift. So I would be here by myself doing all the things and trying to run a business. And actually, we're very grateful because he actually got a new job and he's very close to home, like 10 minutes. And so he's on first shift as well now. So, but it was a lot of conversations, a lot of give and take. It was, it was a lot of communication, planning. I have X, Y, and Z going on. We have a calendar in our kitchen now where I write down shoots on what days I have. If I have like this going on, I write it down so we can make sure the girls have an earlier bedtime, so they have, baths, everything they need. It's planning, and it's stepping into that part of you, though, that says, this is where I am, but this is my vision for where I'm going. And it's holding the space for yourself, because not everybody is going to hold the space for you. That's up to you. And you have to step into your own power, and you have to claim that, and you have to say, this is what I want for myself. And it's going to better our family. It's going to, bring in abundance. It's going to make connections with people. This is what I want. This is what I want our life to look like. And you have to really hold a vision for that, regardless of how overwhelming it can definitely be at times. And I feel for women that, they're trying to start a business and they have a full-time job and they have a family it can be hard work.
That was my experience. I've been single for 15 years and started 3 businesses as a single mom while working full time. So yeah, and what you say about holding space for yourself rang so true, because no one else is going to hold that space for you. No one's going to come in and rescue you. You have to rescue you. And it's all about communicating. And even as a single mom, it was about communicating and articulating to my family, to my friends, asking for help when I needed, and then being willing to hire out help too. And I had something I wanted to share about being a stay-at-home mom. I always joke that I was a stay-at-home mom for about 2.5 years when we first moved to Idaho. We don't live there anymore, but we live in the Portland area now. But I always joke that I got fired as a stay-at-home mom because I'm the kind of mom that I'm a better mom when my cup is full and I have fulfilled some things for myself. Then I have so much more to give.
Of course. And I think deep down we're all that way. And I think that many of us just don't realize it, that we need a little bit more. And I think a lot of times, I mean, I hate to say it, but I think a lot of the time I was hiding behind my family, saying that, I'm not ready because I need to do this for them first. I'm not ready because they're not old enough. I'm not ready because they're not in school full time yet. I don't have the time. It's not about the time. It's about you embracing the time that you have and really taking hold of the reins and saying, this is the time I have. I'm carving out the time for this today. And this is what I'm going to get done, regardless of how anything else goes. We're doing this.
Yes.
No stopping today. Full steam ahead. And you have to be willing to ride the wave. You know what I mean? Because sometimes stuff is going to happen that you don't expect. I mean, your kids are going to get sick. Somebody's going to throw up, God forbid. I mean, kids are kids. They throw a wrench in things. Families happen, but they're beautiful, and it's a beautiful thing. And I really believe that. I believe it's all like one big, beautiful, moving picture. And you just have to like try to line it up when you can, you know, you can't control everyone.
It's so important because, I think what happens if we don't do this is we get resentful and we get bitter and we get angry, and it starts to take a toll on our health because our spirit is dying inside because our needs are not being fulfilled. And then we don't have as much to give.
Let me just kind of off topic real quick. I don't want to go too much into it because it's kind of a longer story, but I know you said that we can get resentful and things can build up inside of us. My dad, when I was 18, well, I was 17 at the time, he was having back trouble and he got diagnosed with cancer. And in September of my senior year. So I just started my senior year. My dad got diagnosed with cancer. It was kind of a rare cancer. It was like in his spine. And so it metastasized from his lung to his spine. They did surgery. I mean, it was kind of horrendous, long story, but he passed away in March. And so we only had 9 months with him. And that whole time, I'm trying to go to school. It's my senior year. I'm trying to embrace everything. My parents are gone half the time. My mom had taken him to the treatment centers in Chicago. And it didn't help, obviously. And we were back, they were back, and then he was on hospice. And this whole time, I'm getting ready to go to college and I'm like trying to make decisions and just so much is going on. And my dad passed away in March. And I started having problems in February. I couldn't walk. I could not, it was bad. Like I went to see a rheumatologist because it was just, they wanted to do blood work. They thought I had lupus. It was a million things. They did not know what was wrong. They could not figure it out. They finally diagnosed me with an unspecific cause of arthritis because they didn't know what was wrong, and obviously gave me a bunch of medication. I wish I would have known then what I knew now about pent-up emotions and trying to get rid of them. You cannot hold that stuff inside of you. You cannot. It will manifest itself in other ways and just to get out of you. She literally told me, she said, your joints are attacking themselves. She said, your immune system is attacking itself. Something is going on. And she didn't know what was going on with our situation with my dad. She was just, and she didn't really ask. But if I would have known then what I know now, you have got to put yourself first. And not always, that doesn't mean every second of every day. Sometimes you put others first. It's part of us. It's what we want to do. But sometimes you have to take inventory of how you're feeling. And if something is out of place or something is wrong, you have to really feel into that and see where it's coming from. You have to take charge of your own life. Nobody's going to step in and say, how's your body today? How are you feeling? Are you doing the things that you love? Are you sure you're in the right spot? If you feel that way, you have to go after it.
Mm-hmm. So, first, I'm very sorry about your dad. Sounds really hard. I'm sorry.
I appreciate that.
And I love the resiliency that you have shown. It's so powerful. And you're right. No one's coming in to ask us how we feel. No one's coming in to say, hey, are you okay in your body? And, I've had different experiences in my life through the years where I'll have these strange medical conditions that come up. I develop these really, they're diagnosable. There's words for them. And then as soon as I change my circumstances, they are gone. And it's happened over and over and over and over again. So it is pent up emotion, and it's
to this day, if I get severely stressed out, and now I can see it and I can recognize it, but I will still, I will feel that starting to come back, that joint pain, the problems it's sensible right away to me. I know it, I know what it is. And then I know I have to take time and cut back on what I'm doing and take time for myself and say, you know what, this has got to be fixed before we move on, or deal with this before we incorporate everything else. So
I love it.
Keeping in touch with yourself.
Yes, I do the same thing. I think that's what drew me to yoga, is because yoga is such an embodiment of our physical body, but it's also the marriage of spirit and the marriage of just breath and unity. And I love that. And since yoga, I haven't had these kinds of experiences in the same way.
It's really important.
So one of the things that is really tough for a lot of my listeners is if they're in a situation like any of the ones that we've mentioned here today, it feels like they can't get out. They can't find the joy. They can't regain their equilibrium. What would be one or two things that you do consistently to feel better?
Yes. So, one thing, I think it's important to know, first off, what triggers you, because I think that's a really important thing. If you have no idea what things make you upset, or maybe what conversations or what scenarios you are in that make you feel out of ordinary or kind of make you feel off kilter, you need to figure that out first, because there's a lot of times where I know what situations are going to make me feel really stressed out, and I either tend to stay away from them, or if I absolutely have to do them, I do them, and then I kind of prepare myself mentally. If I feel like I am getting stressed and kind of out of that alignment space of being in joy or where I need to be, I feel into my body, first of all, because I know for me, it's kind of an anxiety-ridden thing. My heart will kind of speed up and I'll kind of get nervous feeling. And when that happens, I take a minute and I stop and I take some deep breaths and I bring myself back to where I am, because, you know, that's hard for people to do sometimes. You get caught up in your head and you start to think of like all these horrible scenarios, or like, you know, what's going to happen when you have to do X, Y, Z, and you can't do that. You have to come back to your center and, you know, say, okay, I'm right here right now. And I try to do things that make me happy. And it doesn't have to be like some big elaborate thing. It might just be like going and picking up my favorite book off the bookshelf and turning to a random page. And reading something that really makes me feel better. And usually I find that when I do that, it's usually a message I really need to hear. I do that a lot, actually. Or it might be just like taking some time and sitting on the floor and playing with one of my girls, like actually playing a game. My 4-year-old has this game called Break the Ice. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I played it.
Yeah. So we'll like play that game for a minute, and it just gets me out of that space. You know, it's okay to feel stressed. Like we all feel stressed sometimes. I mean, there's no avoiding that. We live in a very like stressful, high energy place. But it's like not staying in that space. Like you have to step out of it a little bit. And I've really gotten a lot better at that the last couple of years. Because it is hard to do sometimes if you have a family and you have a lot of people pulling you in different directions. And you know, sometimes it's just going to take a walk, or for a long time, I'll tell you what I had a problem with for a long time was, I'm kind of introverted a little bit. And when there's too many people around, I get just kind of anxious. And so I know that triggers me. So I tend to stay out of situations where there's a ton of people, but sometimes it's not even about a lot of people. Sometimes I just might be having like a little bit of a time, you know, where something is wrong and it's just stressful. And for a long time, I would get stressed because I would have both my kids home and they'd be running around playing, and I wouldn't know kind of how to tune it all out, so to speak. Like I'd be like, I can't make myself feel better because I have everybody pulling me in all these different directions and I don't know what to do. And it's, you know, but you have to just, even if you have to go shut yourself in a bathroom for a second and take some deep breaths to like escape, or like wash your hands. I mean, anything, you know, anything to step out of it. Maybe it's like just taking your kids outside and going for a walk, or just taking them to the park for like 20 minutes, just so you can sit and just have some peace and quiet while they play. Because kids are kids, and that's, you know, that's just part of it. But yeah, I mean, coming back to that joy space, I mean, it's really just finding the little things that bring you joy. Maybe it's like lighting a candle. Mm-hmm. I mean, and just feeling like maybe you want to clean something up because it makes you happy when your house is really clean. I mean, it doesn't have to be some elaborate trip across the country with a 5-star hotel. I mean, it's because honestly, the thing that you're craving probably isn't even that thing. It's probably the feeling that comes behind that thing.
Yes,
which is
exactly.
About. And so, a lot of times maybe you're just craving peace. So go in the bathroom for 5 minutes and give yourself some peace. I mean, sometimes.
Exactly.
And don't tell them where you're going.
Exactly. And don't answer the door.
Just walk in there, take a few deep breaths, reset yourself. Sometimes it's just a reset and saying like, okay, this isn't permanent. Maybe she's just throwing a temper tantrum for 4 minutes. Like I can make it through 4 minutes. Sometimes It's just the right now. You just have to get through the right now.
The right now and just find a way to do that. I was thinking when you were saying that about going to the bathroom, I opened up a new bottle of soap today and it was Mrs. Meyer's Oat Blossom. And I'd never even heard of that. I didn't know what it was. So I ordered it just because I was like, oh, well, I'm curious. And I've been just like reveling in the soothing light. It just smells so pretty. And I was just thinking about how nourishing that felt just to be surrounded by a pretty scent. And so it doesn't even have to be fancy. It can be just something that makes you feel nourished.
Well, and a lot of times the action that you're doing, say in your case, like washing your hands, I mean, it's probably triggering some sort of feeling or memory at some point with that happy scent. And so it's making you happy. You know what I mean? And then in return, it's just, that's so nice. I mean, it's like walking outside and feeling the fresh air. I mean, and the breeze, it's just, I mean, we all, that's so nice, especially I live in Michigan. So it's like nice one day and then 40 the next. And so like last weekend we had like an 80-degree day, and it's like reveling in the sun. I mean, and then, I don't know. I mean, just like my husband brought home flowers the other day just for our table. And they weren't for me necessarily. I think that he's kind of into that habit where like we've been buying flowers like once a week now for our table for like a few months. And so if he goes to the grocery store, he picks out the ones he likes. And because we like the way they look in our house, they remind us of spring and summer. And we love that. We love spring and summer. So, it's just triggering that happy feeling inside of you. You just have to get to it.
I love it. I just brought home some red tulips this weekend from a tulip festival, and they're sitting on my table, and they're freshly cut from the field of tulips, which I'd never seen a field of tulips before, but in Oregon, that's a thing. Fields of tulips. Who knew?
I have one in Michigan. It's called the Holland Tulip Festival. And
okay.
Yes, it's the same kind of concept. And it's kind of like I don't want to say really small town, but it's kind of a medium-sized town, and they have, the Tulip Festival, and everybody goes. And
that's nice. What this was. It was called the Wooden Shoe Tulip Farm. I love it. So you have so this is a new podcast. I'm a baby podcaster, and you, thanks. And you have a brand new podcast too.
I do. I am currently kind of marketing a little bit for it. I'm planning on launching next week officially. It's called Wild Heart, Awakened Soul. And it's really just about that, feeling that a lot of us have inside of us that is just a call for more. And it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be some wild and crazy vision that you have for yourself. Maybe like you're just really good at making soap. I mean, and you just know that it's inside of you, and it's just something maybe you could get behind on a business or, start it on the side as you grow. And it's just really about that feeling, because what I really found with that is I was really craving joy more than anything. And I wanted something that was going to make me happy, and I wasn't going to find it in teaching. I knew myself. I wasn't happy when I was student teaching. It was not something I wanted to do full time. I wanted to be around my family. And I was like, how can I get something that I can be around my family without having to work, the 9 to 6, the 9 to 5. And, I picked up a camera, and that was like the entry into it. And it started to feel better. But otherwise, like, it would have haunted me. Like that feeling of like, you're meant for a little more, it's like that quiet voice that doesn't leave.
Right. And it's often saying the same thing. It's often an urge to do the same thing. I used to have a photography studio years ago. And it was so much fun. And I absolutely loved it. And I specialized in women and was doing women's glamour photography.
Oh, beautiful.
And what I loved most was the conversations before and after, which is what led me to coaching, which is what led me to, down the path that I'm currently on. But it all started there in those conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that is something I just absolutely love. It's the motivation, and it's you can do this. And it's those conversations of like, I've been where you are. I see it in you. I can see it. I can see it in women. I see it all the time. They're so, and I don't want to say scared, but a lot of times it is scared. It's fear, but it's, can I do this? Like, is it allowed? Like, it's almost like we need somebody to give us permission to go for it. And I am an advocate of that. Like, rise up so other people around you can rise up. Like, show people who you are. I mean, it's like, if I can do it, you can do it. No problem. I mean, and I did it messy. And my first pictures, they were not good. I mean, they were not good. They were like mediocre at best. I mean, but guess what? It is learning. It is learning, and it is embracing the journey. And it is all about like stepping into who you want to be and going and do that. If you're just sitting there scared, it's not going to get done. You have to step into like that other part of you. It's almost like, when I envision it, Brenda, I almost feel like there's like two of you, and there's like this one part of you over here who is like your current person, and there's another part of you over here who is like the business owner version. And it's not separate, but sometimes it feels separate. But I always tell women, I'm like, you have to abandon this part of you that is scared right now, and you have to really step into the business owner. What would she do? What would she do? Who would she be? I mean, and that's what it comes right down to.
And I think, for our listeners, you can consider this your permission slip. Consider this podcast your permission slip to do more, because you have it on your heart. And more may or may not include a business. More might include more time for yourself, or reading that book, or getting that degree, or finding that relationship, or maybe creating peace in your current relationship. More can mean anything, but if you have it on your heart, there's a reason it's on your heart.
Absolutely.
So I have 5 rapid fire questions for you. What's in your morning mug?
Oh, my morning mug. Oh, well, definitely some coffee. Definitely some coffee. If you're talking about lifestyle, definitely some meditation. There's a lot in my morning mug. Meditation, candles, coffee, all the things. Some quiet music. But that usually happens, honestly, after I get my girls off to school. So, I want to sit down. I don't want to be rushed. That's important to me to feel, because if I'm rushed, it's going to throw the day off for me. And so I know that. So I'm going to get them off to school, and then I'm going to sit down and I'm going to have some quiet time and my quiet coffee.
I love it. That's so cool. Is there a song or an artist that you are loving right now?
Her name is Maggie Rogers. And I absolutely am loving her album. Like I said, I just came across it and it has been on repeat. My husband's like, who is that girl? And I'm like, I don't know. Her name's Maggie Rogers, but I'm drinking the Kool-Aid.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, so she's great. I love it. I love her.
I have not heard of her, so I'm going to look her up when we get.
I've never heard of her either. So, but she's great. I like her.
Awesome. What's a podcast you're listening to right now?
Oh, definitely Kathy Heller.
Yes.
Yes, 100%. I listen to Kathy Heller. Probably like 3 times a week. And honestly, right now, she's probably one of the only ones I listen to on repeat, just because I kind of have a little bit limited time between my girls' school schedules and my schedule. Let me see here real quick. What else? If there's any other ones that I'm really listening to. I have been listening a little bit to Jerisha Hawk.
Oh, yeah.
Side podcast. I really enjoy her. She's a really like step into your power, embrace that. You got to do it because nobody's going to do it for you kind of girl. And I'm 100% I'm behind that. I love it. I think she's got great messaging and she's very empowering. So yeah, those are my two.
Awesome. Who inspires you?
Oh, who inspires me? That's a good one. Brenda, these are rapid. I don't know if I can be rapid about this. If you want my truthful answer, Brenda, my kids.
Oh, I love that.
I do. You know, I love listening to people like Kathy Heller. I love listening to people like Jerisha Hawk because they've done it. They've been there. They've been where we are. They know the feelings, and they've stepped up to the plate and they've really embraced who they are. But my kids bring me back to that playfulness and that innocence and that like, I don't care what people think of me. I'm just going to do it because they don't know that yet. You know, they're still in that phase of life where they don't care what people think. I mean, the other day, my daughter we were in Home Depot of all places, and my daughter is like dancing in the aisleway. She's just playing around being silly. She's 8. And I'm like, I kind of was like, Emmeline, what are you doing? Because there was people and they were trying to get through. And I'm like, I love that you're dancing. I love that you're having a good time. But we kind of just have to watch like the people that are trying to get through the aisle because, you know, I don't want to discourage those things because I think it's really important to, you know, I don't want my kids to go through that caring so much what other people think of you, because I think that we were raised in a time where it was really important that we were good and we were, you know, respectful. But I think there's a difference between being respectful and being who you really are. And I don't want them to feel like they can't be themselves. I mean, that's really important. I don't want them to have to backtrack when they're 30 and try to figure out like, why am I so scared what other people think of me? Because I heard a quote one time that other people's opinions are none of your business. Mm-hmm. And it's so true. You know, what other people think of you, it's what you think of yourself and what makes you happy, because that worrying about what everyone thinks is going to keep you stuck the longest.
Absolutely.
Sorry, and that was kind of a long answer.
Oh, that was a great answer. That's so powerful because sometimes we are thinking about somebody outside of our house or outside of our town or even outside of our country, and it can be right in front of us.
It doesn't have to be a huge jump. And sometimes I think finding the people that are close to us that are really inspiring is nice because they're right in front of you and they're accessible. Absolutely. And you don't have to go to an exterior mode to find them. So
awesome. And my last question, you may have already answered because you talked about this a little bit, but if you need to flip the switch, if you're feeling fearful or constricted or worry, what's one thing you do really quick to flip that switch so that you can get back into the flow state or feeling joy or at least feeling better?
So there's a couple things. One, I put on my favorite song. That always helps. Something that's going to empower me, not something sad and, you know, takes me back to a sad place, but something that is going to make me either have a dance party or, you know, feel great. The second thing is I play a worst case scenario game with myself. If this happened, because a lot of times it's really just a fear and it's in your mind, and like you're taking yourself down this horrible road for no reason because your mind is just telling you all this stuff, right? And I will literally be like, if this happens, what is the worst possible thing that can come out of this? And I will just list out the stuff. And normally it's not that bad. I mean, normally I could come up with a solution for most of the stuff. I mean, you know, if I fell flat on my face, I mean, I would just pick myself up, you know, I mean, you know, a lot of people have different fears about different things. And I think understanding your fears and understanding where they come from, but also understanding how to bring the joy into your life to really balance that out is very helpful.
I love it.
I love your podcast. I think it's so beautiful to find ways that bring you joy. I mean, people don't even think about that. They're so caught up. You're welcome.
I'm so excited that you've been here as one of my first guests. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me, Brenda.
It's my pleasure. And by the time this is published, your podcast is going to be live. So be sure you go find Wild Heart, Awakened Soul with Marianna Johnson, because you are in for a treat. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you.
And I will put Marianna's contact information in the show notes for this recording. And until next time, bye for now.